name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about data privacy and low Earth orbit communication technologies. So low Earth orbit is the layer of space around Earth, around 2,000 kilometers above the Earth. I think that's 1,200 miles. Low Earth orbit is the place where a lot of the satellites that we interact with on a day-to-day basis exist. The reason why low Earth orbit is a big deal is because since the 50s, the U.S. and countries around the world have been putting satellites in that layer of space. But what has happened that hadn't been anticipated was that satellites are more ubiquitous now. They're smaller, they're cheaper. We have a lot more technologies that depend on and rely on satellites, and that will only grow in the future. As a matter of fact, there's a new offering that's coming out with Apple in their 14 Plus or 14 Pro phone that they have coming out, and it has to do with a satellite relay. So for example, let's say you have this phone, you're in a location where you don't have cell service or you don't have Wi-Fi service, it can communicate with a satellite. So for example, let's say you had an emergency, you were lost in the middle of nowhere. This phone will be able to communicate with the satellite to relay your emergency information to a emergency authority in the area where you are. It's definitely life-saving, life-changing type of capability. But what Apple has done, they're kind of crossing the threshold that people never thought would ever happen, which was having a situation where satellites in low Earth orbit would be collecting and transmitting personally identifiable information of people on Earth. So the reason why this is a big deal is because satellites that are in low Earth orbit or things that are flying around in low Earth orbit, there are basically no privacy laws related to that. So as I said, it was never intended or never thought that satellites would ever personally identify people, and we know that that's no longer the case. So now what we're going to see is a proliferation of a lot of more satellites that are going to be in orbit, more satellites collecting information, transmitting information about people. A lot of the technologies that we see that are probably going to be coming out very soon are going to rely very heavily on being able to use satellite capabilities in this way. It's very Wild West in terms of regulation. There are very few or basically no regulations related to privacy in this layer of space. There is a change that has happened recently in low Earth orbit, and this is about companies that have satellites that are dead or dying. They recently changed the regulation where instead of waiting 25 years to take those things out of that layer of space, companies have only 5 years to take those things out. They're concerned about things colliding in space in that area, especially because there are so many companies that are putting new satellites in space. This is currently like a $300 billion a year industry. When we think about things like, Web3, not just satellite radio and telephones, is basically going to create a situation where a person can be personally identified almost anywhere that they are on Earth, and that's something that we never contemplated before, and our regulations around the world aren't really ready and prepared to really answer that challenge. So we'll see how things turn out. This is only going to snowball because not just Apple, but companies like Samsung and Huawei, any company can actually do this. Apple sort of crosses the line first, but we're going to see a lot more technologies that are going to be using for good or bad data that's collected about individuals from space. That's it. Thank you.